All right, the journey to reinvention. That is the brown bag topic for today. And why reinvention? I think that I came to this topic because there is so much change going on around us. And we are probably either finding ourselves in a resisting or maybe ready for reinvention mode. So I think that whenever we're wanting to stay in that resistance, of course, we're not going to move forward, we're not going to make progress. But being willing to reinvent in times like these, in times of massive change, that's what I'm going to work on today with you, that journey to reinvention. And just like the students that have been returning to school or will soon to be returning to school, wherever you are, we're going to go back to school because that is where we start. We need to figure out, kind of go back to the basics and understand what it is that maybe we need to do to get ourselves to reinvent. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video and we're going to dive right into our topic today. And I started with the chat. So let's see what's in the chat. Yes, resistance can be real. Yes. Yes. And I'm so glad that you said you're ready to engage. Yay. And that's a big part of it right now. I think that we've been in a mode for so long of constant reinvention almost, because we've heard pivot, pivot, pivot. But what I'm really wanting to look at right now is how do we really take the situation we're in and consider, is reinvention really the best path? Meaning really starting brand new versus trying to take and the old and mold it into how it will work today. How do we actually start fresh? I'm going to just do a quick introduction of myself, just for those that are catching this on replay and have not been with me before. I am Jenn Montague. I am a social and emotional intelligence certified coach. I'm Maxwell team member. My business, GenQuest, I've owned for 4 years, since 2016. Prior to that, I spent over 20 years in the financial services industry. But I always say the best thing on this page is that I am an official member of the AA Club, which is awesome. And so much of what I do is help people with their relationships, especially in my social and emotional intelligence work. And that is whether it's their relationship with themselves or relationship with another person. And relationships are key for our success in life. So let's start back to that point of mindset. This is a great starting point. We've started here the last couple of brown bag breaks. And the reason I want us to start here is because everything about reinvention is going to begin with our mindset. It's our ability to reinvent is going to be determined by our mindset. And the key thing that we're really going to take a deeper dive in element of mindset is our thoughts. We're going to really spend a lot of time on thoughts today. And so let's just get right to the point of thoughts. No pun intended right there. You're going to see some school supply themed slides today, and that's just that back to school concept of reinvention. And if you think about all the beautiful colors that are on the screen in front of you, we need to figure out how to be our own artist, our own author. And I've got a quote for you as well for relative to that today. But the key thing is what are our thoughts and how are we going to adjust our mindset or create a mindset that's going to allow us to reinvent. And I've been reading a couple of books this month that are going to be referenced today. One is Reinventing Yourself by Steve Chandler. And these are a couple of quotes from his book. First, reinvention begins at the level of thought, and our energy and mood are created by the language we think with. And the next thing I want to share with you is a little quote from Cleo Wade from Heart Talk. It's also a book that I've been working through. It's actually a collection of her poems and her thoughts. And she says, and why not make all your talks with yourself pep talks? So I want to ask you, how is your self-talk nowadays? Are you in a place where you are using what she likes to call loving communication with yourself, or are you putting yourself in a place from your thoughts where you're not acknowledging what you've accomplished? You're not being your own cheerleader, your own you're not conducting pep talks, you're conducting other kinds of talks, or your thoughts are driving you in more of a negative direction. We can't reinvent if our self-talk and our thoughts are not seeing that reinvention is possible. So I want you to think, maybe what are those words that you're using? Are you using and practicing loving communications at this time? And I really want you to dwell in that space of loving communication. And I love how she uses that phrase, loving communication. So let's start with some questions you need to ask yourself. And as always, this is a journey I've been on myself as reinvention. You know, what do I need to do for my own business, my own personal life to navigate this constant state of change? And so these are the things that I was asking myself, so I'm going to share with you. First, what change do I desire? Why do I want to reinvent? And where do I want to go in life? So if you can spend some time, whether journaling or just digging really deep with these questions, I know you'll have some clarity in regards to, is this a reinvention time for yourself? And I just noticed I have a typo on my screen. gotta give myself some grace there, right? So where do we want to reinvent? So what is the change? So what are you really craving? You know, what is that thing that you know that you really need to do and you're craving it, but for some reason you've been resisting it? And then what do you hope the outcome will be by reinvention, by starting fresh, by giving yourself that restart capability? And then lastly, where do you want to go in life? And this could be directional or distance. It could be however you want to apply it. So it could be that if you're in corporate and you want to go up the corporate ladder, right? Maybe that's the direction where you want to go. But maybe it's you are in the stage of your life where you are just really focused on what your legacy will be. And maybe that's an element of your reinvention process that you want to explore. So next, let's get clear on your why. That is the second step I've identified in reinvention. Because once you answer those three questions I just gave you, then you're going to notice that you need to get really clear on your why. Some people call that your purpose. Some I've heard call it your spirit. Steve Chandler, who I referenced before and who wrote Reinventing Yourself, he references this as your soul purpose. And I think I mentioned that last month in our How to Make Bold Moves session. So what is that soul purpose? And we're going to talk about how do we become aligned with that soul purpose, that soul alignment, how to achieve that. Simon Sinek, of course, is very well known for his work on the why mission. And his quote is, happiness comes from what we do. Fulfillment comes from why we do it. And clearly, if we are leaning in and we're finding our soul purpose, fulfillment hopefully is our goal. Happiness is great. And I've shared the quote that I love from Eleanor Roosevelt in the past, which is happiness is a byproduct of a life well lived, not necessarily a goal in and of itself. So it's how we live our lives, how fulfilled are our lives. And if you're reinventing, my hope is that you're making a change that takes you towards fulfillment and that soul level connection between you and whatever work you do or whatever you put out into the world. So there's three things I want you to think about when we discover or we want to get realigned with what our why is. And they're passion, energy, and perseverance. And you need to have high levels in each of these three areas. Passion, this is your heart. This is the heart of the matter. This is what you're most passionate about. It affects you deeply and it means a lot to you. So this is not something, your purpose, your why isn't going to be just a passing phase. This is something that is very deeply ingrained into who you are and what your heart is. And I've mentioned before John Maxwell's questions: what do you sing about, what do you dream about, and what do you cry about? Well, that goes to the passion element of our purpose in life. Energy, you need to have a lot of energy, because you need to be energetic and excited about what your purpose is, or what your why is. That reason you get out of bed in the morning, or you get up early, or you stay up late. What is that that's giving you that natural energy? And then lastly, that perseverance element. You're not going to give up on this. Your purpose, because of the energy level, you're also have got that sticking with it energy. You're not giving up. You have that stamina. You're tenacious. You're willing to do anything to make this come a reality. So when you're leaning into your purpose and your why, your spirit, or your soul work, you're going to be passionate, you're going to be energetic, and you're going to be persevering in that arena. And if you're not hitting on these three things consistently, then you may not be in the right alignment with your purpose. You might need to do a little bit more soul work on that and really understand what it is that you feel your why is. Like, why do you really do the work you do, so that you really do receive that fulfillment? And I'd already mentioned this little statement here, that you're the author of your own life. And this is the key to your why. When you are leaning into your why, you are the author of your own life, because your why gives you your way. And I know I've shared that before. And this is we all only have one life. So how do we want to choose to write that story? I hope that you choose to write the story with your full heart, and not just be a passenger on the journey. I want you to be the leader, the author, the person who is navigating this for you, versus just being kind of pushed along by events in your life. So the next step is determine who you want to become. And so once you've identified your why, you need to also identify who you want to become. And so knowing your purpose is just that first step to get you on that journey. You need to become clear about the who. So think of or research people who have maybe a similar life purpose that you've identified in yourself. So what are their two things? Behaviors and attitude. So what do they do? Like the real actions, what are their behaviors? What do they do? And what is their approach to life? That attitude element. Like, how do they actually approach life? So maybe who you want to become is a successful entrepreneur. Maybe you want to become an amazing mother or spouse. Maybe you want to be a great leader, or a social media influencer, or a top sales rep, or a philanthropist, or an artist, or a writer, or a yoga master, whatever that's called. I know I have someone on the call today that is in yoga. So I don't know what yoga master is, but whomever that is that you want to become, you need to understand, if you're reinventing yourself and that's who you want to become, what are those behaviors and the attitude that you need to possess to really become that person, to really reinvent yourself to be that person. Behaviors, our habits are huge relative to our behaviors. So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, most successful entrepreneurs, they say they are ones that are willing to get up early, are willing to, put in a nice balance to their life, but they're willing to also make some sacrifices, and they understand the trade-offs that they need to make to be able to get where they want to be. So what are those behaviors and the attitude that the person you want to become possesses? And then next, once you've got all of that information, the answers to your questions, knowing your why, knowing who you want to become and what those behaviors and attitude is, you need to identify what you need to learn. So more than likely, after you've done this assessment, you figured out that maybe you don't have all the skill or all the knowledge that you need to deliver in that arena. So this is your going back to school. You're going to identify maybe what you need to learn so that you can deliver your purpose and give your purpose and your value and your why to the world. If you are a person like me and we are in the service mindset, it's all about the value that I add, that I want to give out to the world. So I've got to figure out what I need to learn consistently to be able to add that value. So think about that. What are the things that you need to learn? So what are the ways you can actually learn? You can take a class, you can join a group, you can read a book, right? But never before have we had so much learning capability at our fingertips. It's online, much of it's free. You can YouTube, you can Google, you can join a free Facebook community such as mine, the Intentional Growth Club. So there are ways that you can learn without even having to use a resource of money. You're going to use the resource of time, and that is something that so many people want to get it now, but unfortunately they're not willing to do that trade-off of the time it takes to learn that new skill or that new ability. So think about the things that you will want to learn to be that person that you want to be. And I have a chat, and so I'm going to look at that real quick. Yes, I'm reading the chat. That's why I'm pausing. So an attendee said that is the truth. There is so much it can even be overwhelming, and I agree. So the key thing is that next step that I'm going to go into, and this is that final step, which is make a plan and implement change. And making a plan is it sounds simple, but it does take some work. And where you start is from all the conversation that I've had, that whole process, from answering the questions to figuring out your why, to understanding the behaviors and the attitude you need to possess, to understanding what you need to learn. All of those are actions. So the best way for you to really make a plan is to list all of those actions out. Now, you may be starting at the end result where your outcome is and working backwards, or you could start from the very ground and work your way up. However your brain works. People work through this process differently. So whatever works best for you, you might be able to back into it, or maybe you need to be a builder and you need to build one step on the next. But the first thing you need to do is list out all of those actions you might need to take. Then determine your priorities from those action steps, because you can't get it all in. Like we said before, it can become overwhelming. But once you list out all of your actions, you can quickly determine your priorities by simply looking at what is the first step. What's the logical first step? What needs to happen before the next step can happen? And then first and foremost, none of this will ever happen. Reinvention will not happen unless it's scheduled. You need to schedule it and put it in your planner. So I know that this has been kind of an all-encompassing 5-step process for reinvention, but the time I took to just explain it, if you actually do the questions, you sit with your journal, you make notes to yourself, you really dig deep and ask your questions. Ask the questions about, what are you passionate about? What are you going to be energized about? And what are you going to be willing to persevere and do whatever it takes? Then that is going to take some time to get clear on that. And, you have the tools to make each day a true masterpiece. And it's really up to you to getting yourself on that reinvention journey. And like with all of my brown bag breaks, I always share what's next before we go into the open discussion. So those that are on live, I can't wait to have a little bit of open discussion on the reinvention process. But let's talk about what's next for Jenn Quest and myself. I am currently celebrating a 100th anniversary, not myself. I'm not that old, but we had this month, 100 years ago, the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. So in celebration, I am offering $100 off the annual enrollment of the IGC VIP program, which is the Intentional Growth Club VIP program for women. And actually the two people that are on live with me actually are part of the program, yay. But those of you that are catching it on replay, you might find that it is a good program for you. This is just for the ladies. And we do a lot of group coaching. You have an annual strategy session. You get a discount on any of my other programs. But we take deep dives into some of this conversation we've been having today, which is mindset and how do we get into action and how do we implement those plans, and then that accountability that goes along with it. So not only can you just take $100 off the annual enrollment, you could also get the first month for just $1 or the equivalent of 100 pennies. And the codes there are available. IGC VIP 1 for $1 off the monthly enrollment, and IGC VIP 100 for saving the $100. This month, I've implemented messenger rooms in the Intentional Growth Club, the free Facebook community that is available for everyone. And the next messenger room activity is going to be our inspiration and motivation session that's going to be on Monday, August 24th at 11:30. But the first week is always going to be focused on mindset, the second week action planning, the third week overcoming obstacles, and then the fourth week of the month we'll do some inspiration and motivation. So you'll just know that if you join my community, you'll get invited to the next messenger room opportunities. And the next brown bag break, we're going to have a little departure from our third Friday of the month for the rest of the year. And I've moved it to the third Thursday. And so that will be at 11:30, same time, but instead of the third Friday, it'll be the third Thursday. So our next session is Thursday, September 17th. So thank you very much for joining me today for this edition of the Brown Bag Break. And I hope that you plan to join me on the third Thursdays for the rest of 2020. Thanks a lot.